Hi there. Welcome to Chaplin Talks, everybody. How's everybody doing? I just wanted to give a quick note before this episode goes out. This episode with Simon Callow. We filmed this at Mr. Fogg's Tavern in the gin parlour on St. Martin's Lane. So I wanted to give a very, very special shout out to Mr. Fogg's for letting us film there. If you haven't checked them out before, go to the bar. It's a beautiful bar, beautiful setting. There's a few of them around London. Amazing cocktails. So I highly, highly recommend it. I'll put a link in the description below. And I'm out filming interviews at the moment. I'm walking around London here. So there'll be more episodes to share with you soon. If you haven't subscribed to Chaplin Talks, please do. There's a lot of effort that goes into these episodes, and I really appreciate everyone that watches. So thank you very much, everybody. Here's Simon Callow. So listen, Simon. Look, it's a pleasure to have you on. It really is.
Thank you.
I'm a huge fan.
Thank you.
You know, you've obviously had a very long and successful career. I'm just curious. This is a bit off topic, but I'm just curious. Do you still have to audition for movie roles? Are you past it now?
Past
it. Yeah.
Long past it. I'm glad to say.
Yeah. Because I'm serious. Like, I would imagine someone with at your stature who's done so many great movies and stuff that, like, if a movie role comes along and say, "Can you audition?" You just go, I would.
I don't really understand why they need to do it, because it's out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've made over 50 films, and you can just very easily see my work at any point of my career. So I don't get it, so I don't do it.
Okay. So I've heard you speak very highly of my grandfather, which I, am very touched by. So am I right in saying that your grandmother took you to the cinema when you were younger? Do you remember what film it was and how old you were?
No, I don't remember which film it was, but I do know how old I was. I was probably about 11 or something like that. That would be about right. 11, 12, that sort of age. No, let me think back, actually. It's possible that I went even earlier than that. I might have gone when I was 6 or 7. The point is that there was there used to be a lot of these all over London, a cartoon house, which also showed old silent movies, and particularly those of Chaplin. It was in Waterloo Station.
Oh, really?
So if you were waiting for your train and it was cancelled, which has probably happened then, true, you just went in and caught a movie, or a couple of movies, or whatever you could. It was a wonderful facility, actually, that they had. And I just, interestingly, my grandmother, who's French, adored Chaplin, adored him. I mean, she just thought he was a consummate artist. And I didn't think in those terms, of course, at that age. I just thought he was sublimely funny. I just loved of course, the pratfalls and all of that. It wasn't until later that I also saw that there was this extraordinary poetry in everything that he did, and an extraordinary musicality about him, and a poignancy. Of course, all those things you only come to appreciate as you get older. But there's something that in Chaplin that generally appeals to children a great deal. It's something, an aspect of him which is childlike.
Yes.
There's a childlike quality to the tramp. And children really get that. But for adults, the poignancy is of perhaps of a child that doesn't grow up, or of basically almost invariably a failure. Character's almost always a failure, the little tramp. Yeah. Always fails in love and
exactly,
and at work and in pretty well every way. But at the end, of course, it always comes out good. So there's the satisfaction of that too. It wasn't really until I was, I guess, when I started really going to the theatre and thinking about acting, that I realized what a really supernaturally gifted actor he is. It's absolutely astonishing. Not only the dexterity and the physical brilliance, the pratfalls and all of that, but there's a sort of truth about it, which is quite piercing. It goes straight to the heart, and I was one of the few members of my generation of actors who talked about these things, who continued to admire Chaplin when he became eclipsed in, the taste of people who thought they knew about these things by Keaton, whom I also admire Keaton very much. I don't see how you can fail to admire Keaton. He's a wonderful performer, but nothing like the range of Chaplin, nothing like the versatility, the multifariousness of Chaplin, the inventiveness. It never ends. Just incredible.
How much of that do you think? Okay, so actually I did some research and I realized you both actually have quite a lot in common, in the sense that you're both from South London.
Yes.
You both grew up without a father, essentially.
Yeah.
Cared for your when your mother's got ill and all this kind of stuff. And somewhat, do you not come from a background of kind of entertainers or?
Yes. On one side of my family, yes. Yeah. My great grandfather started life in Copenhagen as a clown.
Okay.
And then he joined a circus as a ringmaster, still in Copenhagen. And there he met and married my great-grandmother, who was a bareback horse rider, who came from a long line of equestrians, of theatrical equestrians, and whose grandfather, my great-grandmother's grandfather, opened a hippodrome, I mean, the place where horses cantered about, in St. Petersburg. And when he decided to leave St. Petersburg, the Tsar of the day wished to show his respect for him to such an extent that he presented him as a gift Napoleon's horse.
Really?
And he then toured Europe with Napoleon's horse.
That's incredible.
People just looking at it, it didn't have to do anything, this horse. It was a good, cushy job that he just stood there and then people shelled out money to see it. I mean, that's extraordinary. So, and then my great-grandfather and his wife, indeed, and his children came to England, and then he set up shop just about 10 minutes away from where we are now.
Okay.
In Great Newport Street, and he had his office there. And I have one of his playbills, or rather flyers, distributed to the public, and it said, it was the headline was Dr. Zaynard's Lilliputians, and the strapline was the 40 cleverest little men and women who ever lived, and they're just a troop of midgets, basically. And my grandmother, who lived next door to my grandfather, obviously before they married, remembers them coming to tea, all of them. They're dressed up in tails. And, very elegantly attired. So it is there. It's in my blood, very much so. Okay. And of course, my family came from Brixton, and he was just down the road. Chaplin was just down the road. He was. Lambeth, and in fact, it's one of those things that is generally assumed that all the great comedians of the variety and music hall stage were East Enders, but they weren't. A lot of them were from South London, and there was Chaplin.
Yeah. I think him and his brother Sidney lived in Brixton.
Yep,
for a bit, didn't they?
Yeah,
because I know they moved houses quite a lot.
Yes.
I guess I have a two-part question: is having gone through what you've gone through with your growing up, as did my grandfather. do you think, A, that it shaped his career? Would he have been the same superstar as he turned out to be without his childhood? And did your childhood shape your career?
Well, my childhood was nothing like his. I mean, his childhood was a Horrorsville and confusing. But because of his mother's mental instability, of course, but also because of her rather flexible amorous relationships. So sometimes she was with someone who was rather posh, and Chaplin became rather posh, and then suddenly they were demoted. Well, it's true that my father being also absent and unwilling or unable to pay alimony, I was, for example, always being sent to boarding school and then being pulled out because they couldn't afford, my mother couldn't afford to carry on paying for it. So there is a certain instability there. But the thing about Chaplin that you can't but be struck by if you read anything either by him or about him is his astonishing single-mindedness, his absolute clarity about what he needed to do in order to A, be successful, but B, to create. And I think he was a very artistically gifted, which isn't necessarily the case with all comedians, but he had a great, wonderful taste. And was really, this was a famous incident, of course, that when he was with the Fred Carnot troupe and they played in Paris, and he was summoned at the intermission to a box, and this gentleman said to him, "Mr. Chaplin, you are a musician and an artist." And that gentleman was Claude Debussy, no less. Exactly. So, I mean, it was not, it was understood, I mean, by everybody, really, pretty quickly. I mean, he didn't have a difficult times. He did what everybody had to do on the way to fame, and the fame came quite early, but he did his share of trudging around the provinces and all the rest of it, all which wonderfully described in the first part of his autobiography.
What a great book that is!
Absolutely. I mean, after success, as the case with all autobiographers, after success it becomes less compelling, just because there's no great drama in there, whereas the drama of the early years and the precision of his observation of the world around him is simply astounding and fed into his work all the time.
Oh yeah, completely. As a child, like you were saying about seeing his films in the cinema, when you're a child watching it, you laugh because it's just funny and whatever, he's falling or police are chasing after him, whatever it is. But as I got older, you start realizing actually he's sending quite big messages. Through these films. It's not only funny. It's actually, depending on what it is, whether it's kicking an immigration officer in the ass or whatever. He's actually making quite bold statements for the time.
Yeah, I mean, he was very socially conscious. I mean, he was a socialist, basically, and his depiction of the lives of ordinary people are unforgettable and must have spoken so deeply to people at the time. The majority, the neglected majority, were given credence in the films of Charlie Chaplin. They're wonderfully vivid and in some ways very realistic accounts of the misery of many lives. And I think that's, of course, part of what made him this massively successful figure. I mean, it was calculated, I think, that by the age of 25, he was the best known person in the world. That's the wonder of silent movies, of course. He was able to communicate with every culture and every age and every language, people of every language, speaking every language, and he became a universal figure. And the intensity with which he worked on the performances, on his own and those of his fellow actors, is kind of exceptional. Would be exceptional at any time, but in the general run of comic silent movies, there's nothing quite like it. His perfectionism, which tormented him and tormented everybody he ever worked with. I mean, as I seem to remember, the Gold Rush, he built an entire set. He just I can't remember which way around it was. Either he demolished the entire set and then went and shot it on location, or shot on location.
No, he shot on location, and then the weather apparently was too bad. So he just built the whole set in his studio in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, and built all the mountains, everything. Apparently,
that's right, exactly.
It's quite a sight.
His perfectionism enabled him to scrap whole days, weeks, months of work. Not right. So they really. I mean, that's not not many filmmakers at any time have had that luxury. Not that it was as if he was wallowing in it. I mean, he was just demonically possessed to get to the right place, and in my view, almost always does in the silent movies. I mean, I can't think of one that even Woman of Paris and all these. I think they're all really wonderful pieces of work. And Orson Welles, who had no reason to like Chaplin very much, he always claimed that Monsieur Verdoux is sort of stolen from him by Chaplin.
Exactly.
But that's not true, because they had a deal.
They had a deal, and my grandfather paid him, I think.
Yeah, all of that, exactly. But no, Wells thought he was just the master of masters.
Yeah.
He also used a phrase about Chaplin, Wells, which is quite interesting. He said he was comparing Chaplin and Laurence Olivier, and he said they both have a kind of low peasant cunning about them. And I think that I know what he means. In a very not middle-class kind of way, Chaplin was just working with the material, and he was utterly and totally ruthless in the work that he did with it, and in regard to anybody else, he just exercised his will in a kind of primitive way. But that's, to use a posh word, demiurgic in itself. It's the god of creation at work. He worked like a god,
Oh yeah, he was relentless, and there's that famous picture of him actually where you see him. He's got like his beard is growing out, his hair's all ruffled up, and apparently he'd been working. I can't remember which film it was, but for days non-stop.
Yeah,
and you can just see him exhausted in this photo, and you can see he was known to put all that work in.
Yeah.
Going back to how you say his fame, I had Stephen Fry on not too long ago, and he was saying the one person he could think of who was just as famous as my grandfather during his time would have been Charles Dickens.
Yeah.
Who he was saying in some ways, I don't know too much about Dickens, but apparently had a similar sort of upbringing as my grandfather. And apparently people would flock to the boats to try and get the latest editions of Dickens books and stuff.
Oh, yeah. He was the first superstar.
Okay, so this is what I was going to ask you, because you've written books about Dickens as well, right? So would you agree with that statement? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dickens was a little bit ruthless too, but not quite to the degree of Chaplin. He was more urbane than Chaplin, much more. But he too, like Chaplin, I mean, many people have said, I know who worked with Chaplin have said he was always on.
Okay.
If he went to a party, he, as it were, sang for his supper. He did a whole performance and would do comic routines and all this kind of thing. You never really felt that you were actually talking to Chaplin himself.
Interesting.
And people sort of implied that a bit about Dickens as well.
Interesting.
He wanted to dominate the room and so on. No, it's a good observation. Dickens didn't have the misfortune of having a mother who was mentally unstable, but he didn't. He was fairly exhausted and annoyed by his parents. Once he'd passed his teens, they relied on him to look after him in the same way, of course, that Mrs. Chaplin Senior was totally dependent on Charlie, and but it seems that he was always very kind to her and made sure that she was.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He brought her over to America as soon as he could. Yeah. Is it true that you sold your house to look after your mum towards the end? I read that somewhere.
Well, it's not quite as simple as that, but I did run out of money, and so I did sell my house. She was dead by then. But
okay. So it's interesting because look, my grandfather obviously was a perfectionist.
Yeah.
And as you say, always switched on. And it's funny because when we watch home movies of him, I've seen a lot of home movies.
Yeah.
That my grandmother filmed. She had a camera and it was always on, and he's playing around with the children and all this kind of stuff. He's always playing up to the camera.
Yeah.
Always, which is kind of interesting. And then I hear stories from my dad, Eugene, about how actually he could be quite a serious man at home as well.
So I gather. Yeah. And I believe that. Yes, like many great comedians, he probably had a very poor sense of humor in life. It was a science.
Yeah.
Comedy was a science for him.
Yeah.
Which he absolutely mastered. He was the Einstein of the science of comedy.
Yeah.
Absolutely desperately serious about it, as comedians tend to be, because the difference between getting a laugh and not getting the laugh can be infinitesimal.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Command that tiny detail is the essential thing.
Going back to the Buster Keaton thing, I get asked a lot, like, who do you prefer, your grandfather, Buster Keaton, or Lloyd? And in my head, it's like there's not really any competition. For me, I'm always going to choose my grandfather, obviously. But I guess going back to what when you were talking about before as well, is what do you think set him apart from the others, Laurel and Hardy? Why do you think he excelled further?
Well, why is the best the enemy of the good? I mean, he just happened. I mean, he hit the sort of mother lode of comedy. He just got it there, absolutely head on. He absolutely saw what is funny with it, and it is a ruthless old kind of job being a comedian, and it's anybody who's tried to play comedy of any kind will tell you that if it fails, there's a sort of awful feelings if something has died in the room and is rotting.
Yeah.
It's just not good. So you'd want to think about what it is that you're doing and how you can avoid that horrible sensation of not really succeeding or pleasing people. And one can only go back to comparisons which are sort of only partly helpful. But if you talk about Mozart, well, Mozart just so far exceeded all his contemporaries in pure facility, in the ability to work at such speed, with such unerring perfection. Pretty well, I mean, from the age of 17 or 18, there's barely a note in Mozart that isn't just utterly and perfectly inspired. And that's a gift, but it's also a gift that he worked and worked. And like Chaplin, he felt the need to sing for his supper all the time. He had to, there was nothing aristocratic about Mozart. He was a worker, and he just, went to work.
Yeah, it's sort of like that 10,000 hours theory, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, yes. Yes.
Do you have a favorite Chaplin film?
I'm inclined to say The Circus.
Okay, interesting.
Not that it's necessarily the greatest. It certainly doesn't have the resonances of the Gold Rush and all those other films, or Modern Times, which are much more ambitious and so on. But his work in it is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
The sequence where he crosses a tightrope and is surrounded by 40 monkeys, which apparently he was.
Yeah, he was. He absolutely was.
It actually happened. I mean, you thought this is cleverly cheated and something. Not at all. And the tenderness, the love that he has for the owner's daughter, and the fear that he has for the strong man and all the rest of it is so brilliantly done, so absolutely impeccably, definitively done. And I think it's got a wonderful shape to it too, the circus. So I do love that very much. But I would have to say probably the Gold Rush is possibly the greatest,
right up there, yeah.
Or Modern Times. Yeah. I also have a great fondness for, Monsieur Verdoux.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
It's a wonderful piece of acting on his part, and the scene where he counts the money. Yeah. I love it, miracle. What the hell's the Hitler film called?
Great Dictator.
Yeah, The Great Dictator also is really fascinating, but playing the two roles, and what he does as Hitler in the sequences with the globe.
Yeah, it's just
this is an interesting thing, is where Chaplin weaves together comedy, realism, and ballet. I mean, that's just ballet, what he does in that. But it's the spirit of the commedia dell'arte. It's every great clown, Grock and all the rest of them, he draws on to make this fantastic amalgam of elements. I could really watch the entire oeuvre of Chaplin. I'd like to, if I really had time, once every couple of months, because you learn and learn and learn a little bit. But then, of course, you can't learn because you're not Chaplin, and that's a bit heartbreaking.
Yeah, okay.
Because the scene in Modern Times, is it in Modern Times where is he in a shop? No, maybe it's another one. I can't remember exactly. But again, it's something to do with he's selling goods over the counter, and just the ballet of his hands.
Yes.
And the absolute perfect symmetry of it all is just absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, because there's that famous scene where he tries out the eating machine. So in Modern Times.
Yeah.
And apparently he operated that all underneath himself.
Did he?
It was all mechanical. He did it all himself. So
I believe it absolutely. Yeah.
Actually, it's interesting because I was reading up about you, and it says here, in 1984, you were one of the first public figures in your industry to openly reveal that you are gay, and have said that it's one of the most important political acts that you've ever done.
Almost the only political act I've ever done.
Really?
But it was a useful one. Yes.
Okay. And at the time it was considered a bold move. Upon reflection, why do you think actors were worried about announcing their sexuality to the public?
Well, with very good reason, because they saw that it was very possible that they wouldn't work again. There was enough prejudice in the business itself, but out in the outside world. However, it is worth pointing out that whenever it was, when was it? Was it 1953, something like that, when John Gielgud was apprehended for, as they called it, soliciting, and he was fined, but not sent to prison. He took up, the play that he was touring with and had directed. He resumed it and was greeted with a huge roar of approval by the audience. So what my theory was that, I mean, I just couldn't, I'm a very bad liar, so I just couldn't put up with giving interviews by pretending to be looking for the right girl. And so I'd say that I was gay, but they wouldn't print it. They just
I heard that. And why is that?
It wasn't a story. what they want to do is to find you out. They don't just want to report on you. They want to find you out. They want to catch you out. And they probably would have liked me to break down in tears or something like that. I mean, I remember the interviewer who said to me, I understand you're bisexual. I said, that is a disgraceful lie. I'm homosexual, pure and simple. And she didn't print any of it. None of it. It was game, set, and match to me on that one.
How interesting. And do you think nowadays with actors, because at the time, if you think about Great Dictator, obviously, he financed that film himself after nobody wanted to put it out. So, and like you say, he'd take months and months and months filming a particular scene because he could, but it was all his own money.
Yeah.
So he really put his money where his mouth was, in that sense. Nowadays, do you think people are too cautious or not cautious enough when it comes to kind of being, I guess, political or not necessarily outspoken about what's going on?
Some are and some aren't. I mean, excuse me, there are always radical filmmakers, and I don't see any diminution in that. People are now a little more conscious of being politically correct, and frightened of being, cancelled and all of that stuff. That's a bit of a scourge, I have to say. So there is fear in that sort of way, but there are certain things which you now can do which you couldn't do before. I mean, you can make a gay film, you can be openly gay. Not that there are that many openly gay actors, but there there are enough for people to understand that it won't kill your career. Yeah,
for sure. For sure.
No, it was very understandable. I just couldn't face the idea of pretending for the rest of my life. And I'd even written an article in the New Statesman in which I mentioned that I was gay, and the press office wouldn't allow me, of the National Theatre wouldn't allow me to say that.
Oh, really?
They just said, no, I cannot allow you to wreck your career like this. And I said, well, if my having a career is dependent on my lying all the time, then I don't want a career.
That's the point, yeah.
But anyway, that seems to me like very far in the distance.
Yeah. How interesting.
I'm not a militant. I don't much march, but that I think was a contribution. It was
for sure.
But by the way, the only way that I came out was by writing a book in which I said it, because nobody would print it. No interviewer would print it.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, but they could print it. A book written by me. So that was a useful thing to know. I mean, Chaplin had many things to contend with, partly his own extremely complicated private life.
Well, yeah, he was. He was a complicated person.
He certainly was, and he was widely thought to be a communist at a time when that was a very bad thing to be.
Yeah.
And thank you. And very combative. He was quite combative. He wasn't going to take things lying down. And he was in an America which was becoming increasingly polarized.
Yeah, for sure. I always find it crazy how, when people don't necessarily agree with you, whether it's government or whatever, people were bugging his house. They're tapping his phones. The government were going through his mail, everything.
Absolutely.
I can't believe it, it's interesting. So do you think that his work still, do you think people appreciate his work as much today, or do you think sort of like his genius has been lost with time?
Well, it's a problem. It's a problem for the whole of the film business, or to put it more grandly, the art of film, in that peculiarly, though we have access to this whole massive past of filmmaking, both in sound and silent movies, that people don't generally seem to be very interested in it. And so they tend to talk about, when you say who are the greatest actors who ever lived, and they'll say, well, Brad Pitt or something like that, with completely forgetting 50 years, 100 years almost, of extraordinary actors, extraordinary performances, which people just don't know about. And so the same thing's happening with Chaplin. I mean, people don't just generally know about.
Well, it's the 100th year of the Gold Rush, 100th anniversary this year, and they've just released. So they restored the Gold Rush into 4K. It looks absolutely amazing.
Oh, man.
And you know, and it's funny because when you get people into a room and you show them these films, it's not necessarily just my grandfather. Even films that were made later.
Yeah.
There's so many classics out there that when you do get people into a room, they love it.
Yeah.
If they see it, they love it.
Yeah,
but it's just it's finding the way to get these people to see it.
That's the problem. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just astonished that actors don't. I mean, every actor should know Chaplin's work inside out, because even though we can't do what he does exactly, the spirit of it, and especially in the area of sentimentality, he's brilliant about that, because he can be sometimes completely harsh and almost cynical, but somewhere there's this wonderful tenderness which he accesses.
Yeah.
And we should just learn from that. I mean, just watching a Chaplin film is an education, apart from a delight and an entertainment and so on. I'm always very mindful of the film he never made at the end, The Freak.
The Freak, yeah.
Very, very fascinating. He would choose that phrase, that word, for what he knew would be his swan song, if ever, if he actually got to make it. Because I knew Jerry Epstein.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, how funny.
I knew him quite well. We were going to make a film together, and I was very fond of Jerry. And I know he was very close to your...
Oh, absolutely,
your family, your entire family.
Yeah. My dad lived with them in Victoria.
Yeah, exactly. That's where
St. Vincent Square is where he lived.
Yeah, by Westminster School.
Yeah.
And I very much regret that we didn't make our film together, Epstein and I. But he did. He talked to me a lot about The Freak, and indeed, he and I even sort of planned a film. I don't know whether we would have got permission for it, but about Chaplin at the end, dreaming of making The Freak.
Oh, really?
And how it would, because The Freak is him.
Yes. But
The Freak is also everybody who's different and odd and so on, outcasts and so on. And I thought it would be a rather wonderful film to make of him dreaming the film, just dreaming it.
Interesting.
And looking at his own past at the same time and so on. I think there's something very rich, because there's quite a good book about it, isn't there? By Pierce.
Exactly.
Someone.
Yeah.
And it's rather, it tells us a lot about Chaplin.
Yeah, I guess to clarify with people what it's about as well. Yeah. It's a film that he never got to make, but he wanted to make towards the end of his life. And it's about kind of this angel, or what you'd call a creature, or that's not from this planet.
Yeah.
Kind of falls to Earth.
Yeah, yeah.
And then people start kind of gathering around, and I think eventually they start. I think they think, God, I need to remember this. It's been a while. Do they not think that it's like almost like their good luck?
Yeah, yeah.
And stuff. So they all want to be around and kind of get healed by this thing, and then eventually the crowd turns on them.
That's it. Yeah, it's a story. There's a story by H.G. Wells called can't remember the name of it at the moment, but it's about an angel who falls to earth at a seaside town in England.
Okay.
And at first, people are nervous, have no idea who he is or what he is, weird creature. But slowly they become, they come round to him, and they respect him, and they're intrigued by him, and then they sort of love him, and then they start to blame him for if anything goes wrong.
Oh, interesting.
And he's finally cast back into the sea.
Okay.
Damn, it's a really interesting story by Wells.
I'll look it up.
There's an opera by Nino Rota about it. The Marvelous Visit. That's what it's called.
Okay.
The Marvelous Visit.
Yeah. Okay. I'll definitely look that up. My dad has a very funny story about Jerry Epstein.
Oh, yeah?
So he said apparently Jerry was I think he was in New York. And he might have had a heart attack or something while he was...
Very likely, yeah.
Yeah, and I think he had a heart attack while he was in New York. And he was still living in London at the time, but he was visiting New York. And he ends up going to hospital. Mm-hmm. And I guess he goes... He's in hospital, and then they don't want him to leave hospital. He's like, no, I need to go home. I need to go home. So he flies back to London. And so, I don't know, a few months later, he gets post. And he opens the letter, and it's a bill from the hospital in New York.
Right.
And he looks at it, and he gets a pen, and he writes, sorry, this person is deceased. And sends him back to the hospital.
That's very funny.
I heard he was quite the character.
He really, really was. He was very funny. He was very funny, but he was not the most enjoyable person to work with as a producer, because I'd write the screenplay or write a scene, and he'd say, I love it, it's so beautiful. Whoa, Simon, you're a genius. It's fantastic. And then he'd send me the script with the new scene in it, except that he'd rewritten it completely. So there was nothing like what I'd
I see. How funny. So tell me, what's your greatest achievement on or off the screen?
Oh, my Lord. I did a show once, which I'm very, very proud of, but which never came to London, which is called The Man Jesus. Mm-hmm. And I played in it 19 characters.
Wow.
And started with the Virgin Mary, pregnant at the beginning. And I was bearded, as I am now. And it was the most challenging thing imaginable. But it's a wonderful piece of writing. And
okay.
I think I sort of did in that play everything that I'm capable of as an actor, because I covered the waterfront. I was Pontius Pilate. Jesus himself. I played the Virgin Mary, blah, 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 and all the rest of it. So I'm very proud of that. Otherwise, I suppose I am quite proud of having come out like that. It was helpful.
Absolutely.
Quite proud of a couple of books that I've written. So.
Okay.
I'm not particularly proud.
Okay. And do you prefer theatre acting to being on film? If you had to choose one?
Well, the obvious difference between stage acting and film acting is the audience. I like audiences.
Well, also the fact that it's all, completely live in the sense that,
Exactly. Yeah.
How many plays have you been in? Do you know?
God, just 30, 40.
Okay. Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, there's something about the magic of seeing something live. And unfortunately, I also kind of feel like it's slowly, not that it's a dying thing. People always want to go to the theater, but I feel like younger people are so infatuated by all these newer movies, CGI and everything. Mm-hmm. At some point, it would be nice to see people go back to older times in a sense, and go back to the theater and enjoy simpler movies in a way.
Yeah, though it's true what you say that if you here we are in the middle of the West End, with upward of 30 theatres.
Yeah.
None of them empty. Mm-hmm. Many of them charging huge sums of money for tickets.
Yes.
Which people willingly pay. So it can't be dying, the theatre, but it is changing. Mm-hmm. There's no question about that. And because increasingly the way to finance a play is to get a movie star to act in it.
Yes.
And I think that is changing the nature of the art to some extent. Because when I started acting, which is a frightfully long time ago, 50-something years ago, 52 years ago, There were, of course, always people who acted in movies and acted on stage, like Olivier. But the bulk of their work had been done in the theatre, so they knew the theatre intimately. They knew absolutely how to relate to an audience, how to use their bodies, their voices, how to tell the story best. And a lot of people who act on the stage nowadays are perfectly decent actors on film, but they just haven't got that experience.
Yeah.
And the old directors used to say things to you when you went to a new theatre. They say, warm the walls.
Okay.
Warm the walls. And it's a very good thought. You do have to extend yourself out. And of course, people are mic'd a lot nowadays.
Yeah.
And that reduces the physical kind of effort as well, which is not good.
Okay. And, okay, so what do you hope audiences take away from your career?
Well, I hope they feel they've met a lot of different people.
Yeah. And that's
in
one
the characters that I create.
Exactly. And that's one thing I was going to say. You've, done very well in not sort of pigeonholing yourself in one role. Although obviously you've been in some films that are bigger than others, but you've got such a wide array of...
Yeah.
Which is...
People would very much have liked me to keep playing Gareth in 4 Weddings and a Funeral, everything I ever did. So I tried to avoid that. That's amazing.
And anything happening next? Are you working on anything?
I've just directed a film and I'm editing it now.
Okay.
That's the second film that I've directed. And I'm doing a series next year.
Okay.
I hope to do some more theatre. It's a long time. No, it's 5 or 6 years since I've done a play.
Oh, really?
Long time for me, yeah.
Do you enjoy directing?
Yeah, very much. I mean, if it doesn't work out, then it's a form of hell. But so is it a form of hell if you can't get a part right,
Yeah.
No, getting anything wrong is not very pleasing.
Yeah. So, okay, to finish off, I see you brought a piece of paper. Did you say it was something that you wrote about my grandfather?
It was a review of a biography of Chaplin, yes.
Okay, and do you care to read a bit, or?
Well, it's a sort of review, so it might not read very well. Well, let's see.
See what, just to get an idea of...
Let's read a paragraph of it.
Just be interesting to hear.
Okay, I'll read the first paragraph. The book is by Peter Ackroyd. It's a very good short biography of Chaplin, one of the best, I think, around. Anyway.
Okay.
In this year, 1915, begins a chapter halfway through Peter Ackroyd's concise, compelling new biography. Chaplin became the most famous man in the world. This fact is so extraordinary, so improbable in the light of his origins, that it is allowed to stand alone in Ackroyd's book, a paragraph in itself. Chaplin was 26 years old in 1915. He had been born in South London poverty, the offspring of an unknown father and a mother whose brief career as a singer and dancer came to an end when Charlie was a boy. From then on, until her death in an asylum in Los Angeles, her sanity came and went. Before long, the man she'd been married to at the time of Charlie's birth, and whose name he bore and made immortal, dumped her, as did several subsequent paramours. When she was incapable of looking after Charlie and his brother, they stayed with relatives or lodged in the workhouse. His education was skimpy and fitful. It ended at the age of 9, when, having taught himself clog dancing, he first took to the stage as one of the 8 Lancashire lads, and nearly became part of a double act called Bristol and Chaplin, the Millionaire Tramps. A millionaire tramp, of course, is exactly what he became, but not without having put in some very serious slog on the way.
Listen, I can't thank you enough. What a way to finish. Thank you so much, Simon.
It's a pleasure.
No, honestly, really, thank you so much.